In these uncertain economic times, it's easy to be worried about protecting your wealth, your hard-earned savings, and your family's financial future. Plunging interest rates, the devaluating dollar, and political unrest constantly threaten what you have worked hard to earn and all that you own. That's why now it's more important than ever to protect your assets and have the money you need to make your dreams come true. Welcome to the Global Wealth Fortress Report with successful global entrepreneur and wealth preservation expert Joel Nagel. Joel's helped thousands of people just like you protect what you have so that you can make even more and make your every dream come true. So, sit back and enjoy Joel Nagel's offshore expert advice on how you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.
Hello, and welcome to Joel Nagel's Global Wealth Fortress Report. Today we're going to take a little different turn in the road. You know, the average audience for our podcast, the Offshore Club, usually 50 and above, but I'm getting more and more letters from young people, okay, which I'm glad to see, who are also concerned. And some of them say to me, how should we look at asset protection? Joel Nagel, I believe, Joel, welcome. You have 7 children, right?
I do. I have 7 children. My youngest
what
is
are the
16.
age? What are the age ranges?
My youngest is 16 and my oldest is 29. So,
wow,
you know, they're young adults. One is still in high school. A few are in college, graduate school. I just had 2 graduations this weekend. My oldest son graduated from medical school, and my oldest daughter graduated with a master's degree from Harvard. So we're very proud of them.
Wow. Congratulations.
But, you know, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's, you know, my view is asset protection. It's never too early to start, right? I mean, it's like saying, well, you know, I'm not going to open a bank account because I only have, you know, $100. I mean, you open it, you put your $100 in with the expectation that you're going to get more later. Yes, there are some different techniques. Obviously, you don't want to spend virtually any money on structures and things that would be disproportionately large in relationship to the amount of assets you have to protect. I mean, I get that even from some people who aren't so young. You know, I had one of my daughter's school teachers contacted me and said, hey, you know, I have this $200,000. It's an inheritance I got from my mother. It's really the only asset that I have. You know, what should I do? I mean, we're not going to talk to somebody like that about, you know, creating trusts and corporate structures and things like that. We're just not going to do that, because, you know, any amount of money spent on that will impact the asset itself. And the goal is to preserve assets, not destroy them in any way, including through our fees. So, you know, that's why when people say, oh, we only work for rich people, well, in a sense, that's true, because, you know, they can afford that. It's a little blip. It doesn't meaningfully impact their overall returns. But that doesn't mean we don't care about people and we don't advise people who don't have wealth. That's simply not true. We really try to help people at all levels of the spectrum. And most young people tend to be at the lower end. But of course, that's not always true either in this day and age. With, you know, some of the young people were the first early adapters to, for example, cryptocurrency.
Right.
And, you know, if you were buying cryptocurrency 10 years ago at, you know, $10 a Bitcoin, you probably have some wealth today. And we are getting more and more, you know, calls and emails and inquiries from people who said, geez, I never thought I was wealthy. And now all of a sudden I look at my crypto statement, I'm worth, you know, $4 million. So they wake up one day and they are wealthy. But I think your question about young people is really geared more to people who don't have much wealth. So let's start there, and then we can go up the spectrum to people that have, you know, more median and then even higher amounts of wealth. But, you know, for people just getting started, there's lots of good things you can do. Again, I'm a big proponent of assets that won't lose value over assets that maybe will make you a lot of money, right? Because I'm not an investment advisor. I'm really trying to help people maintain or increase their purchasing power. Sometimes faster with things like cryptocurrency, sometimes slower. But in any case, you want to always maintain what you have and then build from there. So, it's just some things you can do. In the metals area, there are plenty of good coin dealers that we work with and bullion dealers. And you don't have to go out and buy expensive numismatic coins, for example. You can buy what's called a bullion coin, which is really printed and minted just for the metal value. So they're 0.999, silver, 0.999, in some cases 49s gold. And, the premium over the spot price is very, very negligible. So, if silver's trading at, $23, maybe you're going to pay 24 or 25 to buy something like that. But you can buy single coins. You can buy a roll of 10 coins. Same thing with gold. You can buy a gold coin that's a bullion coin for just a few dollars over the spot price of the gold itself. So that's a really great way to get started. You buy a few coins, stick them in your, under your bed at home or in a drawer somewhere, maybe a safe deposit box, as you start to get more than a few dollars. Outside of metals, we talked about crypto. Again, for some people that's big, for some people it's not, but younger people tend to be more predisposed towards it. In fact, that's really
right.
how, I had clients kind of asking me about it, but it was really my own kids who were like, Dad, you gotta look at this. You're missing out if you don't, and I stopped and I was thinking about it. At the end of the day, what you and I think doesn't really matter, right, Carter? I mean,
yeah.
At our age, we do have wealth, but when you think in generational terms, what's more important? What we think that about Bitcoin, what the 20 and 30-year-olds and teenagers think about Bitcoin. I mean, they're all in, right?
They're all in.
A lot more. They're a lot more interested in buying Bitcoin than buying stocks. So what happens when you and I retire and we want to sell our stocks and our IRAs and there's nobody to buy them because the young people are all more interested in crypto. So crypto's great. You have these companies like Coinbase, FTX. It costs nothing to open accounts with them. Again, you can buy, $20 increments, $50 increments. I would encourage you when you have a few extra dollars, put it into something like that. I mean, I see young people, and I give my own kids a hard time sometimes. They say, well, I don't have any money, but they're at Starbucks spending $5 on a coffee. I'm like, look, you should be saving and investing that. Make your coffee at home for 18 cents, and then you can put a few bucks in something else. So, I really believe it's never too early and it's never too late. I get at the other end of the spectrum too. I'll get people that are 75, 80. They'll say, I don't really have much wealth. I get my Social Security. I don't know what I should do. I want to protect the little bit I have. They get almost the same advice, which is move some of your assets away from, the fiat dollar regime.
Yes.
Which is political. I mean, let's face it, the amount of dollars in circulation has only to do with what the Fed decides should be out there, the U.S. Treasury Department. That's a political decision. It has nothing to do with the economy, the inherent value of what the dollar is or should be, right? It's all very speculative. Sometimes they talk about it going up, but the reality is over time it just goes down. Currency never really truly goes up. If you look at a chart like a day, a week, or a month chart, you see little blips up and down, right? But if you take a 20, a 50, 100-year chart, the blips turn almost into a straight line, which is like, in the case of a dollar or any other major currency, it's like a 45-degree angle, just heading down. And so you're trying to avoid that, right? I mean, you're trying to say, look, if I have $20 today. I want to buy something that will at least maintain that $20 purchasing power tomorrow. And then I want to build on top of it. So, moving out from the things we've just discussed, real estate. And, for young people, real estate, again, it's in some parts of the world, it's very affordable. I know that you love and spend a lot of time in Honduras, Ecuador. There are places in Central and South America where you can buy a little, lot on the beach for $10,000 or $15,000. And if you're in South Florida, it would be, 1.5 million. So the barriers to entry are much, much lower. So, those are a couple things that jump to mind.
Yeah, I'm glad you said about the barriers to entry because, when I had, when I was at Judicial Watch, I had a lot of millennials work for me, about 10 of them. And I would try to tell them, you've got to live beneath your means.
Absolutely.
For
I
two
think
reasons.
That's a term we always heard growing up.
We always did.
You never max out your income, and that's it. I mean, I see people even wealthy. I mean, I get wealthy doctors that come to me. I had one not long ago. The guy's income was $1.8 million, and his net worth was like $75,000. I'm like, how is that even possible? I mean, literally, he just spent money. He had leased cars and big vacations and clothes and ate out 3 times a day. And, it was coming in, it was going out. And I'm like, look, you're like a giant sieve, you're pouring water into a colander and saying, why doesn't any of the water stay in there?
It's just crazy. I was telling my wife, we were up at our place up in West Virginia, up at Riverbend Park, our vacation home. And I have a 2004 Jeep, right? 2004. I think it's just about 250,000 miles. And we pulled out of where we are, and a guy pulled out in front of us, had a brand new Jeep. And I told her, Princess, I want you to think about something. He probably just went somewhere and paid 60, 70,000 for that Jeep. Okay. But he is sitting behind a steering wheel, looking through a window, exactly like I am. That's it. That's all he sees. We're both going up to the snack shop. We're going to arrive at the exact same time, but it cost me nothing, and it cost him $60,000 to get there. And so I try to tell people, buy the minute. I think now you're the asset protection guy. I think an automobile is one of the worst investments on the face of the earth.
Exactly.
I just do.
Exactly. I mean, it's you're actually acquiring a liability is what you're doing because of the cost component. But along the same lines, I mean, well, we have again with 7 kids and my wife, and we have a number of cars, but my kids make fun of me. I drive a 2001 Suburban, and it's like a tank. So it's terrible right now because of gas prices. But like you said, I've got 200-some thousand miles on it. I had a guy 2 years ago Kareem off me. He came through an intersection. He was looking down at his Google Maps, and he was in one of those little Priuses. And his car was spread out, 300 yards from one end of the highway to the other in pieces. And I had like a little dent in my bumper because, the front of a 2001 Suburban is literally an I-beam. But, it's the same thing. Like my kids are like, when are you going to get a new car, Dad? I'm like, Mom, my car drives great. And, the minute any car that I would want to buy would be expensive, and I don't need to buy an expensive car. I can use the money on something else.
It's just crazy because, and I explained to my wife, the minute, talk about asset protection, you buy that car, and the minute you drive off the lot, it drops $10,000, $20,000 in value. That's not very good asset protection, in my opinion. And I am not, like you, America's #1 asset protection attorney, but even I figured that out.
Well, I'm getting clipped a little bit with gas these days, with the current economy, paying $5-6 a gallon of gas in a Suburban that gets about 9 miles to the gallon. I live on a big hill, and when I hit the accelerator to go up the hill, the engine has plenty of oomph, but I can almost watch the needle of my fuel gauge go down. So I do feel that. So, But yeah, I mean, you have to just balance things. What you spend your money on, and do you want money now, or do you want money later? And
That's it.
if you're in the group that wants money later, then asset protection becomes really important, because if you say I want money later and you save it now, but the value of your savings is being frittered away because the value of your money is going down, you don't have an honest saving mechanism. I wish that we did. I mean, in reality, based on inflation, if you save $1 and you put it in the bank, you should be getting, somewhere around 10-12% interest.
Yeah.
And if you're not, and no bank is paying you that. So what does that mean? That means if you put $1 in the bank says, thank you very much. They're going to pay you 0.01% interest.
0.01%.
And maybe, yeah, exactly. But that means that you're not keeping up with inflation. So, you're benefiting other people by saving that money. And maybe that's why we've trained a whole generation of young people not to save. They figure, why should I save? It's just the value of the asset's going to go down. So might as well just spend it now, buy cars and, expensive lattes and nice clothes and whatever. But, the problem with that is, unless you want to work till you're, until you literally keel over, you're never going to get ahead, and you're never going to be able, to form your own capital to be able to invest in things that make you money so you can retire. And that's the key. I mean, the key to, some freedom at some point in your life, whether it's, retirement or, in some cases it's people in their 30s, because they manage to work through the process really quickly. It's, take your assets, invest them in a way that at least keeps up with inflation, that at least protects the purchasing power of what you have, so you can build on that. And then if you're lucky, you make the right types of investments, it's going to grow from there. But 80-90% of the people that I talk to, they're not even keeping up with inflation. I mean, if you have a bond portfolio, you're down.
You're down.
Most people's stock portfolio these days down. Even if they think they're up, oh, I'm up 4%. Well, you're up 4%, but in dollar terms, the purchasing power of your dollar went down 12% last year. So you're not ahead.
So you're not ahead. And, I just read I think it was a Gallup poll, 65% of the American people could not, if they faced an emergency, could not come up with $500, Joel.
Yeah.
Horrible. I mean, just because, again, spending to the limit, overspending without any asset protection stored away.
Yeah. I've seen statistics like that. And even at the high end, only around 6% of Americans have liquid $100,000. And, $100,000, some people sounds like a lot, but honestly, in today's day and age, that's not that much money. That, only 6%, even some people who sort of act and pretend like they're wealthy, they're in a giant rat race. So they're working harder and harder and harder to pay giant mortgages and giant leases on their car and whatever. And you're right. If they get sick or have an emergency, a bump in the road, it's just everything around them is going to collapse. They can't maintain the mirage. And we saw some of that during COVID, where some people, really couldn't maintain their lifestyle, and we saw foreclosures and things like that.
Oh, just 600,000 small businesses the government closed down that'll never reopen. They closed a lot more than that, but that will never reopen because of what government did to them. And that brings me to a question. With young people today, what do you tell them about entrepreneurship? I mean, I got to be honest with you. I would be very hesitant to try to open a new business in the U.S. today because of the regulations and the rules and the fees and the licenses and the permits and the taxes. What do you tell people, young people in particular? Horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. I mean, look, a lot of young people have a lot of infinite energy, and and they're really willing to run up the hill, however steep the incline is, and that's great. And that's the kind of entrepreneurship that built America. And I hope that it doesn't all evaporate and leave. But you're right. There's so many sort of systemic things that discourage that these days. Not too long ago, somebody gave me a copy of a handbook manual to open a restaurant in New York City. I kid you not, hang on to your hat, 10,000 pages.
10,000
pages of bureaucracy that you have to work through to be able to get a license to open a restaurant in New York City. So, I'm getting young people that are saying, hey, tell me about opportunities south of the border. They're saying, well, go to Belize, we'll go to the local municipality. You'll pay a couple $100 for a license. You'll get it in 10 minutes and you go hang out a shingle. And if you know how to cook, open up a restaurant, or you want to do some other business, it's some people say it's a little bit like the Wild West, and maybe it is, but the reality is that's wonderful for young people because they can experiment. They don't need to have massive amounts of capital, and it's not just Belize. I mean, I'm seeing that all over Latin America. I'm seeing a lot of that in places like Portugal that have really opened up the door and rolled out the red carpet for people in the crypto space. They want to attract people into that space. Some other countries of note in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, which used to be a Soviet state, and now it's a member of NATO and the European Union, and very low taxes. I mean, the maximum tax rate is 10%, and capital gains is 5%. So they're attracting, and they've made a huge push to eliminate all the bureaucracy from the communist days. So you look around the world and you find, hey, there are interesting places I could live. You're probably not going to just, based on this podcast, run to Bulgaria, but hey, check it out. Sofia is called the Paris of the East, and there's less graffiti, and it's a lot cheaper. Your $5 coffee's only, $1 or something. So, those are the kinds of places I think, if you have talent and energy and entrepreneurship, but not a lot of capital, you can get your foot in the door and you can get started.
Get started there. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because my feeling, if I had a kid right now and he wanted to start his own business like Steve Jobs in his garage, I would say it's a great idea. Buy a garage in Honduras or Nicaragua. Because you're gonna, what you just summed it all up perfectly. And that again is great asset protection, because you're going to be able to grow it. I think when we first met, you told me you had the analogy with football about the defense is the first. What was it again? We'll close on that. What was it? You remember?
Well, you like when the Steelers hired Chuck Noll in 1969, and the first guy he drafted was a guy by the name of Mean Joe Green, which I know that name.
Oh yeah,
Hall of Famer, centerpiece of the Steel Curtain, and he basically, that was his idea. Like, I want to start with a great defense. I want to prove to the other team they can't run, they can't pass, they can't get around me, and then he hoped that his mediocre offense could score a few points and win the game. And the defense came first, the offense came second, and then you had a great team with both, which the Steelers won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, which was all around that Steel Curtain defense. So I mean, and it doesn't matter whether it's sports, in warfare. Sun Tzu in the book The Art of War, 2,500 years ago, wrote about making sure you can't lose the war before you try to figure out how to win it. And for a lot of young people and old people as well, to the extent that you can spend less because you're in a cheaper environment, that puts you in a much better position to succeed. You're going to be able to save more, have more for a rainy day, because we're all going to hit snags in the road. We're all going to hit rainy days. And if you're maxed out, if it takes 101% of your income every month just to get to the next month, you are the classic, hamster on the wheel. You're just running around, you're running, you're never going to get anywhere. And in some of these countries that we touched on today, and there's plenty of others in Southeast Asia, South America, there's plenty of places in the world where you can live a better quality of life for less. I know that's one of your taglines. And spending less is a major asset protection device, particularly for young people, right? Because if instead of spending $2 on something, you only spend $1, or instead of spending $1, you only spend 25 cents, then you have that money left over. You can do something else with it. You can invest it or put it in your business, or do whatever you need to do to hopefully get ahead. So we are seeing a lot of more and more young people. I'm seeing that as well. 20 somethings who are, they love the digital nomad lifestyle. They can even work a traditional US job from abroad. And again, live in a place they want to live and spend less. Or they can branch out and, start their own business. Well, one of the young ladies that's worked for Mike for a number of years in Belize, she just went out and started her own real estate company. And,
Fantastic.
you don't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to do that. It's a process. You're working, you're living, you're traveling, and you realize, hey, I really can do this. And, the other nice thing about being a young person, I tell my kids all the time, it's not a crime or a sin to fail. You're going to pick up great knowledge and go out there, try something, give it your all. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you're not married, you don't have your own kids. The time to fail is now. It's not when you're our age, right, Carter?
Just I always tell people, it's all right to fail, just fail forward.
There you go. That's a good
Joel,
one.
Thank you very much. This has been great. Great advice.
Carter, thank you.
We aimed it at the young, but we helped the old as well. So thank you very much. Excellent. Excellent. And we'll do it again next week. I'm sorry, by the way, those of us in Baltimore did not care for me and Joe Green. I think. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
You.
We'll talk again next week. All right, folks. There you have it. Great asset protection advice from America's #1 asset protection attorney. For those of you who are young out there, follow that lead. Follow that lead. For those of us who are older, it ain't too late. So, as I always tell you every week, let's do this thing.